Hey, welcome back to my channel. Got a little something on the bench here for you. I've got a crimping tool for these Dupont pins and connectors, and I'm going to show you how to use this crimping tool. If you don't have one, or maybe you do have one and just haven't had very much success with it, I've had this for a little while, and recently I've used it quite a bit. I'm building the ultimate charging station, which I'll get to that sooner than later, but I'm going to make an extension for this Lipo pack. So that's kind of what this video is about, just a simple, quick look at how to use this. But I want to zoom in for you. I want to show you how that pin fits in there and some of the tricks and trades, that I've figured out how to make it better. So, but this kit, why even bring it up? Because this kit, I'm talking about a bundle, because you get the crimping tool, you get like a pack of these connectors. And these are the 2.54 mil pins. That's what these bounce leads are. And then you also get a pack of these, which is your servo pins. So your servo connectors. So that's really convenient to have that stuff on hand, especially if you tear one of these up, or you break something. I mean, you can literally. This one's kind of short, but you can cut these and repin it and put a new connector on it. So I just want to show you how do we use this crimping tool. And this crimping tool is the PR-3254, and there's also an SN-28B crimping tool, and these Dupont pins and connectors. So that's what this video is. Let's go ahead and get started here. Alright, so we got our crimping tool, and it's kind of preset. So we close the handle, if you can hear that. Okay, and then it'll get to a certain point, and then right there is where it will, that's where you've actually crimped the part in there, okay? And then it ratchets it back open, okay? Right there is the last click. Now when you're crimping it, on these pins, you don't really feel too much resistance. And if you're smashing that pin in there, like obliterating it, or you're crimping it and your wire's still pulling out, there's an adjustment here where you can force that to close even harder or lighter. So I have mine, you can see here, let me zoom in. So that's where I have mine, my adjustment set to, and it works just fine. Alright, so we got this in line for you. You can see that. So the head of the tool, okay, so your crimping part has a 1, 2, and a 3 stamped in it. I don't know if you can see that or not. So that represents 1, 2, and 3. And then here you have your opening. So 2.23 to 2.94. And the connector here on this bounce lead is 2.54. So we're going to want to get the correct, the correct ones. And this kit here I've purchased has the XH 2.54 millimeter. Okay, that's the one you need for this 5S Lipo, and also the 4S and my 3S, and all of my bounce plugs are that size. So that's the groove you want to use to crimp that pin correctly. If you use these other ones, then you're not going to crimp it correctly, and there's nothing you're going to do in this process that's going to help you. It's going to be a nightmare the whole time. So we have number 1. Now with the wire, we just want to take a little bit off the end. You don't want very much exposed. Okay, just spin that wire. Now this wire I'm using here is this is a 20 gauge wire. The wires that come here are 22 gauge. Okay, so factory they've came at 22 gauge. I'm using a 20 gauge because I got a fair amount of it on hand, and I don't want to buy 22 gauge. So that's all I have here on the end strip. Now if you gotta have technical, it's 2 millimeters. So I have 2 millimeters of stripped wire, and I just want to spin that nice, and I want to get it nice and stiff on there. Okay, now let me see if I can get this in focus for you. I have the crimping tool. We're going to use the position 1, and then we have our little pins here. And I want to warn you that these pins can be a real nightmare to work with, because you have to cut this extra off. So I get my little pliers here, and we're just going to snip that off. Make sure you know where that went. The end of this here, I mean, it's really sharp. And if you cut too far back, like let's say you cut right there and then you leave these 2 long posts, pretty easy to shove them into your finger. But what I like to do is I take my pin, okay, and I'm going to put it, let me show you this real quick on the back if I can get my camera to focus. You know what, I'm just going to cut one of these off here, okay? I don't think you need to do this, but for this demonstration, I feel like I need to work with just one of these, okay? On the back here, let me zoom in even further. On the back here, you see this little, right here, this little part that's kind of poking up. That's important not to smash that all to smithereens. That little part right there sticking up is important for this connector here, because that's what pops up into that slot. So when you crimp this and you smash that all to pieces, then it doesn't want to stay in the connector properly. Now if you just bend it down a little bit, that's fine. You can take an X-Acto knife and you can lift that just a little bit back into that position. Okay, sorry for wallering around on here. This ain't easy to film, it's pretty small. The other thing is, when you get done crimping, you want to make sure that this little box, see how this is kind of like a little square shape, and you see in the center inside there, that little flap sticking up is what your pin pushes against. So when you push the pin together, the shaft of that pin will go in that hole and ride on this bent over part. If you smash this or you deform this in any way, it won't give you a good connection to your pin. So when you put this together, that pin, let me slide it in this way so you can see. Does that make sense to you? That pin has to go in there squarely. If it doesn't go in there squarely, then the connection won't be a good one. Okay? Alright, so you got your pins, and the one advice I can give to start off with is, on mine, these are too flared out too far. They're too far apart. And now I've bent this one in. I mean, I've just barely bent that in. They're flared out too much. And then this one here will catch and get bent out the wrong way. So I've physically taken either my fingernails or a tool and just bent that in. But you still want that little bit of flare, okay? Otherwise you can't get the insulation of your wire in there. So your wire needs to be able to slide in there. And if you bend them in too tight, you can't get your insulation into the crack of that connector. This one here is flared out too much. It's too wide and it won't fit in the tool right. Okay, so you grab your tool. You got your jaw mechanism. I like to rest that little pin. Let me see if I can show you here. The back of this right here, I like to rest that on the tool. So I will put that right there, and then I will slowly close to where that flare goes inside. 1 click, 2 clicks. Now the pin will stay in there. I have a free hand now. Okay, so the pin is correctly seated, but not in a crimp. You know, it's not being crimped. And you can see here. Oops. Trying to film this for you is not easy. It's so small. So you can see that that little pin's not being bent or smashed. It's resting on the edge of the tool. So then we can take our wire, which only has 2 millimeters of insulation removed, and we'll slide it into the connector. Okay? And then we can look through the other side, which I don't know if I'll be able to film that or not. Let me see if I can zoom in so you can see. Might have got zoomed in here for you, but you can see inside this connector the wire sticking through. If I push too far, then we'll push the insulation in, and it won't make a good connection. So we need to make sure that the insulation is behind that. You see right inside there, there's this side, and then on the other side here, there's right there, that's the part that folds over the actual wire. So this part right here, okay, folds over the wire. The bigger one folds over the insulation. So we need to make sure that we don't push the insulation beyond that, beyond this pin right here. The insulation should be back here and the wire should be there. I don't know if I can explain that well enough for you, but okay. So we'll go ahead and crimp it. We're just going to slowly crimp down on that. Now the tool is completely crimped. I don't have to put a ton of pressure on it, but you can see the end of that connector. The box of the shape of the connector is still good. That little part sticking up in the back. So the box of the connector is completely exposed and it's not being deformed. Okay? This tool is completely crimped. It's done. Before I release it, I just wanted to show you that that's the way that should look. Trying to hold it very steady for you, but that's the way it should look. See, the square still holding its shape. The die of the tool right here isn't smashing this part of the tip, and then that little flare right there is still intact. And most importantly, this piece right here that actually makes the connection to your other side is not deformed. Okay, so we're done with the crimping tool. So now we can release it. Okay, and it automatically releases once you crimp it all the way, and it won't go anymore. Then it automatically crimps that pin. So we're done with this. Now the pin is connected to this other pins, but all we have to do is just kind of fold that all the way back around. Okay, that makes sense. And then bring it forward and it'll break off of there. Okay, so you're just gonna bend it back and bend it forward, and it'll snap off of there for you. So now this wire is crimped and it's ready to go. It's ready to go into this pin. Okay, so you just do that to all your wires, and then you have to solder this end onto these, which isn't no problem. But that crimping of that connector can be quite a bear. Oh, let me get you a close-up of this. Alright, you can see the connectors crimped onto the wire. You can see that the insulation, that first ring, has pushed down into that insulation, and it's exposed on the other side, but not smashed all the way through the tip. The insulation is just crimped right there. Okay, that's a good thing. And then inside here, that has rolled around and wrapped around that bare wire, and now this pin and this wire cannot be separated. Even with a fair amount of force, it won't come apart because of that crimp right here on the wire. And then the box itself isn't destroyed or deformed, and that little flap right there is still in the upright position. So when we take this and we push it into our connector, you should should, oops, sorry. When you push that into the connector here, get it about that far. And then what I like to do is I have either my chopstick or I have my tweezers here, and I just push on the back of that pin right there to seat that in there. You see how that comes in, and that'll clip all the way up, push it all the way up, and then that little flap sticks up. Okay, and then it won't come out. You can pull on that and it won't come out of the connector. And then that one's ready to go. So we just have a few more to put together, and then this end here just simply solder to the back of this connector. If you need more information on how to do that, you know, I could do some more quick video information on that, but basically I just wanted to show you that this tool is really it's not bad. It's not too hard to use. So that's it. Hopefully this helped. Hey, you know what? If this video helped you or entertained you or whatever, you know, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, man, you give me a thumbs down. It all works. Enjoy the breeze.